Southeast Asia is one of the most diverse places on the planet. With so many different cultures and religions, all living side by side. And I'm an example of just that. My name is Peter Lee. I'm a Singaporean scholar of Peranakan descent, Chinese with a dash of Malay blood. I celebrate being mixed up. It's right in my DNA. My passion is collecting artifacts that offer a fresh narrative. It's a European fairy tale, but it's depicted on a batik from Indonesia. How wonderful is that? I'm setting off on a new journey, traveling further back in time. Oh my God, we see this everywhere in Southeast Asia. To explore how the region's mighty empires have shaped our collective identity. This is a gold mine. No culture exists in isolation. In this episode, I'm in Thailand. 500 years ago, most of this land was controlled by the Ayutthaya Empire. It flourished by utilizing its natural resources.
Oh, he's going for it.
Growing into a trading giant that spawned one of the world's largest cosmopolitan hubs of its time. I'm discovering the secrets. I feel like an explorer from the old days. Of how it became one of Southeast Asia's richest kingdoms. And how it transformed the course of Thai history.
Go there! Hop long! Hop long! Hop long! Hop! Hop long! Hop long เลย Yeah! 10 นาฬิกา Hop เลยเอาลงไปไงหน้าขึ้นเจ้าตรวจค้นมีปืนไหมมีมีดลุก
I'm in Khao Yai National Park, Thailand. And I've just been arrested for poaching. But lucky for me, this is just a training exercise.
Freedom, freedom.
I'm following the team on their patrol. It's led by Tim Redford from the Freeland Foundation, a wildlife NGO who is training these rangers in up-to-date anti-poaching techniques.
So the scouts heard something in front, trying to figure out what he's heard up there in the forest. Yeah, he's giving the sign for an animal, probably only a deer. The main deer that we find here are samba deer. Unfortunately, they are what poachers are after as well.
These jungles are home to over 2,000 species of plants and animals. Lucrative targets for a global illegal trade estimated to be worth over $20 billion a year. How bad is this situation?
They're encountering poachers on a weekly basis.
That is really a lot.
We're no longer talking about poor criminals working in the forest like this. It's huge transnational organized crime gangs running it. What we're aiming to do here is to reduce poaching Because the fact is that you could never completely and utterly stop poaching.
Yeah.
Thailand was among the first nations in Southeast Asia to establish national parks and ban logging in the 1980s. But for hundreds of years, these natural resources were capitalized on to establish one of the region's greatest empires. The legend goes that a trading settlement stood on the Chao Phraya plain. Here lived the son of a rich Chinese merchant called U Tong. He married two princesses from the area's ruling families, and that gave him power and influence. In 1350, an epidemic struck. Fleeing disease, he led his people on a journey that lasted several days, until they came to a large river and saw an island, teeming with abundant natural resources, ripe for building a new kingdom. Here, U Tong installed himself as King Rama Tibodi I and called his capital Ayutthaya. This empire ruled Thailand for over 4 centuries, and its capital grew to become one of the wealthiest and most cosmopolitan cities in the world. I want to find out how King Rama I built this kingdom on the back of its natural resources. And my first stop is a 600-year-old temple. I'm at Raja Burana Temple. It was only relatively recently that an incredible secret was discovered deep within its central tower. But to go down to find out what it is, I first have to go up. To show me its hidden secrets is Sutipop Chantrapakaji from Thailand's Fine Arts Department.
จากบันไดเนี่ยเราจะเห็นว่าเจดีย์เนี่ยบรรจุกรุสมบัติของพระกษัตริย์ของอยุธยาไว้นะฮะผมจะพาคุณปีเตอร์ลงไปดูข้างล่าง
Oh my God, a secret chamber. I feel like an explorer from the old days. In 1957, looters broke in and stole much of the gold buried here. But what interests me is a different kind of treasure. Oh, wow. Look at these paintings. Amazing.
ภาพจิตรกรรมที่เนี่ยก็คือภาพจิตรกรรมที่เก่าที่สุดในสมัยอยุธยาอยู่เนี่ยครับก็เป็นคนจีนจริงๆเป็นภาพวาดของจีนจริงในรูปเนี่ยจะเห็นว่าพวกเขาเนี่ยถือพวกภาชนะต่างๆนะครับการที่จะมาสักการะกษัตริย์ของอยุธยาพระองค์นี้นะครับ
Why would there be depictions of Chinese here?
ต้นราชวงศ์หมิงเนี่ยคนที่มีตาที่เราเรียกว่าโลโต้เท่านั้นที่จะสามารถไปค้าขายกับจีนได้ซึ่งอยุธยาเนี่ยมีความสัมพันธ์นั้นอยู่หมายความว่าประเทศใดๆก็ตามเนี่ยที่อยากจะซื้อของจากจีนโดยที่ไม่มีลายเส้นตรงนั้นเนี่ยก็ต้องซื้อผ่านอยุธยา
It's fascinating to see how entwined Ayutthaya was with China from its earliest days. Ayutthaya was an aspiring trading port, and clearly the Chinese Empire, the superpower in this region, was crucial to their success. Chinese traders came here for rhino horn, kingfisher feathers, and ivory, hugely valuable in traditional Chinese medicine. And in return, Ayutthaya received copper coins and porcelain, and more importantly, political recognition. As Ayutthaya grew, its strategic location gave the kingdom a huge advantage. Ayutthaya is built on an island surrounded by 3 rivers. Its location, about 100 kilometers from the Gulf of Thailand, meant that it was close enough to the sea to ship out cargo, but distant enough to be protected from pirates and maritime invasion. But 200 years after its founding, Ayutthaya's biggest threat came from overland. A growing kingdom that wanted to wrestle control of international trade from Siam. In 1548, thousands of Burmese soldiers attacked Ayutthaya. The Siamese king had to build up its defenses. The city walls, once made of mud, were rebuilt using brick, and fortresses armed with cannons were erected. Its most important defense was this, Bompet, or the Diamond Fortress. It stands at the harbor where foreign ships anchored for inspection and unloading. But defending themselves and their trading interests also meant being ready for war. In this very compound 400 years ago, soldiers practiced an ancient combat method. Krabi Krabong means curved sword and staff. The last time I held a weapon was when I was doing national service almost 40 years ago.
What? Oh, sorry.
Sila Mesaman has been a practitioner for 30 years. And I'm keen to experience how this martial art helped to assemble a formidable army. This is the defensive position to prevent my head from being split apart. Success in war not only depended on the size of the army, but also on the skill of the soldiers. And this is where Ayutthaya had an edge.
จะเริ่มสอนพิธีดาบหลุดแล้วเราก็จะมาเป็นมวยไทยด้วยก็คือใช้หมัดเท้าเข่าศอก
Muay Thai or Thai kickboxing is a world-famous combat sport, believed to date back to the Ayutthaya Empire.
แทงครับก้าวครับในกรณีที่ลักษณะนี้พอเขาจับได้แล้วเนี่ยคือดาบเราจะเยอะเลยก็คือลบครับครับต่อยเข่าขึ้นมาดีครับบ้านซอกครับเก่งมากครับ
The combination of sword fighting and kickboxing turned the Ayutthaya army into a fearsome battalion. Throughout history, peace is ensured by foundation of military might and skill. This is about heritage and tradition. It's the pride of Thailand. As a growing empire with control over lucrative trade routes, the threat from neighboring Burma loomed large over Ayutthaya. To strengthen its defenses even more, the empire would once again turn to its jungles for a secret weapon. I'm in Surin province, Thailand. to learn how one animal helped build the Ayutthaya Empire. So this beauty is Buang En, and she's 30 years old. Hello, Buang En. Lee Salangam is a mahout or elephant trainer, and he's going to show me how these creatures were trained for war. So I'm learning two basic calls. One is Ma to come, and Dun to step back. Dun. 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 It's claimed that Ayutthaya had over 10,000 war elephants. Back then, elephants were the ultimate war machines. He's listening to me.
คือเขาจะได้จำเราได้แล้ววันนี้เหมือนกับมาเนี่ยเขาจะยกมือว่าเราเริ่มรู้จักเขาจะเริ่มรู้จักเรา
Yeah.
ครับ
Okay.
ส่ง
Up next is a fundamental move for all mahouts.
ฮึบฮึบ
Wow! She's actually responding to my feet and pushing me up.
นั่นแหละ
Thank you. I feel very safe up here. Kun Lee explains that male elephants are at their most fearsome when they enter a state of elevated testosterone called must.
ตอนมันตกมันเนาะพูดถึงมันดุไหมดุถ้าออกลบเนี่ยมันดีตรงนี้มันจะไหลนี่รูน้ำมันจะไหลออกมานี่แสดงว่าตกน้ำมันแน่นอนช้างตัวผู้นี่มันจะแข็งแรงแล้วก็จะเร็วด้วยแล้วเจอสิ่งต่อสู้เขาก็จะได้กล้าทำกล้าสู้
So they can be so fatally aggressive and yet so adorably tame.
เขาไปไหนมาไหนเขาเคยสู้เคยลบอยู่ด้วยกันทุกยากลำบากอยู่ด้วยกันกับคนที่นี่เขารักช้างมาก
I can see how deep the bond between a mahout and his charges, built through daily contact and one important ritual.
ทีนี้เราเอาช้างอาบน้ำเลย
Shower time.
ล้างช้างเลยวันนี้
I think she might give me a shower before I give her one. This is elephant spa.
จะไล่แค่นี้เลย
She's going for a dip.
ชื่นใจดำลง
She's so grand and majestic. She's a force of nature. And she's allowed me just to come up right next to her and give her a bath. I think that is such a special privilege. Elephants became such an important part of the Ayutthaya army that they entered the legendary battles of the empire. In 1569, Ayutthaya is overwhelmed by another Burmese attack and becomes its vassal state. 15 years later, it declares its independence and fights back. But Burma stages another massive invasion, and in 1592, the two nemeses face off. Greatly outnumbered, Ayutthaya's King Naresuan holds the line. Legend goes that in the heat of the battle, he spots the Burmese commander, Prince Mingi Swa, on his elephant. Seeing his chance, King Naresuan challenges the commander to a one-on-one duel. A ferocious fight from atop their elephants ensues. The Burmese leader is slain, and the attack repulsed. But these wars affected Ayutthaya's trade. To regain the kingdom's former prestige, King Naresuan spends the next decade expanding his empire, asserting control over a vast area of Southeast Asia. But to become the epicenter of trade in the region, Ayutthaya needed an edge over its competitors. I'm at Sicharon shipyard to see how the empire built itself into a trading powerhouse.
อันนี้เขาเรียกว่าขึ้นมาบำรุงรักษาประจำปี อันนี้แมทเทียลที่ใช้ก็คือทำมาจากต้นหมันที่เห็นอยู่ในมือเนี่ยเป็นวัสดุที่ใช้ในการตอกหมันอันนี้จะเป็นฝอยๆเหมือนสำลีเนี่ยตะเข็บรอยแตกทุกอย่างที่เป็นรอยเพื่อป้องกันน้ำเข้าเรือ
Chachawan Siplianchan is an expert in preserving antique boats in the old ways.
I like this.
And I'm giving him a hand with his century-old rice barge.
Okay. Okay.
The beauty of this material is when it's in contact with water, it expands and makes for an even tighter fit in the gap.
Good job. Good job.
The next step involves a thick paste. It's a filler made from a mixture of materials, including a resin from a tree. It's really fragrant. It's like sandalwood. And it has the texture of peanut butter, which I love. And I just have to spread it evenly. I never thought boat repairing could make you hungry in this way. It smells delicious. I almost want to eat this stuff. These techniques have remained unchanged since the Ayutthaya era. Using an abundant supply of wood from the forests, local shipbuilders produced vessels on the cheap. The industry flourished, and the empire prospered and extended its reach.
ป่าไม้เขตเนี่ยทำเรือได้ดีเหนียวทนน้ำได้ดี
This might seem like a junkyard of old boats, but it's about maritime history. It's wonderful to see an old tradition kept alive by a passionate individual in the modern age. As the Ayutthaya Empire grew, the city needed to expand its infrastructure. It turned to construction. To find out how they built the city, I'm getting a lesson in traditional brick making. The same method used 6 centuries ago to build the foundations of this capital.
ลึกนะลึกไหมคะ
ที่นี่ได้ไหม
ได้ค่ะเนี่ยลึกมาก
Latta Nyem Plasert has been making bricks for 60 years. The first step is to ensure the clay and water are well mixed.
แต่ใช้เครื่องตีก็ไม่สนุก
Yeah, this is fun. So suction. I'm
ขึ้นได้ไหม
ได้ Next is the magic ingredient. The clay is mixed with rice husks. We're refining the texture of the mud. It's getting stickier and stickier.
พอยังเหนื่อยยังเหนื่อยยัง
ไม่เหนื่อย
ไม่เหนื่อย ไม่เหนื่อย
With the mixture ready, it's time to mold the bricks.
พอแล้วนี่ปาดนี่พีเตอร์ยกนี่ตัวนี้สวยไหมสวยนะ
สวยมาก
นี่สวยมาก
Bricks made in this simple way were used to build everything from temples and palaces to fortresses. Some of them have stood for centuries. Even today, these bricks are sought after in the restoration of Ayutthaya's ruins.
เอาไปซ่อมแซมไปปูพื้นทางเดินมั่งอะไรมั่งอบก.บอกเลยนะเขาก็ไม่เอาเขาจะเอาแบบเก่าเขาจะเอาแบบของเก่าเลยทำมานานทำตลอดป้าไปเอาอิฐไปป้าภูมิใจมากเลยป้าชอบป้าดีใจมากภูมิใจมาก
พอแล้ว
พอ
Here goes. It's not too heavy.
เดี๋ยวช้าไม่ไวจัง
As a researcher, my resources are often books, textiles, and artifacts. But in this case, I've encountered a living treasure.
ไม่รอเลย
A simple brick maker who's taught me such a big lesson in history of how the Ayutthaya temples were built.
เก่งมาก
The final product. It's really solid stuff. As global trade increased in the early 17th century, Ayutthaya found itself in the middle of an even bigger trade route. One that linked it to Europe, Africa, the Middle East, and India. And it became a popular waypoint for merchants as they traveled east and west. With that, foreign traders began to settle in Ayutthaya, and the capital became one of the world's largest and wealthiest cosmopolitan cities. In the 17th century, Ayutthaya welcomed foreign traders, a move that gave the empire an advantage over its rivals. Historian Chris Baker explains this open-door policy.
The way that the kings here managed foreigners was to get them to settle in separate camps. So the main island is here, right?
Okay.
Malays were down here, Vietnamese, Mon from Burma, Chinese, the Dutch were around here.
Is there a reason for keeping the foreign settlements away from the main island?
I think it was mainly security. These foreign groups, they had to have their own security forces to guard their warehouses. These militia were potentially a threat, but they were also useful. When you wanted to fight a succession dispute, you went to fetch these people, the Japanese. They probably had one of the biggest armed contingents.
So the foreign settlements were very much engaged in royal politics.
Absolutely.
The head of the Japanese village, Yamada Nagamasa, was a noble who commanded 700 Japanese mercenaries to assist Ayutthaya's rulers in their civil wars.
There was a big dispute over the succession to the kingship in 1628. He became very much involved. And unfortunately, about halfway through, he chose the wrong side. And somehow, he got killed.
Was it common for foreigners to rise to such high positions?
The king actually patronizes many of these foreigners, partly in the belief he can control them. The kings really, really benefit from this and become very powerful indeed.
The Ayutthaya kings were astute and played different foreign groups off one another for their own gain. Despite the politics, the foreign communities helped transform 17th century Ayutthaya into a cosmopolitan trading hub. And with a pair of VR goggles, I can see just how life would have been in this enclave. I'm looking at the river now, and it's just teeming with all kinds of boats. And on the banks, I see rows of goods and cargo. It's a hive of activity here. It's incredible to think that over 400 years ago, the entire river here was lined with enclaves of people from all over Asia, the Middle East, and Europe. It's noteworthy because many nations at the time closed themselves off to foreigners.
Ayutthaya opened its doors to trade with the world, amassed wealth, and built alliances with foreigners. I'm interested to see the effect this had on local culture.
I want you to help me to separate the egg.
Okay, yes, please. I'd love to try.
Okay.
Wirun Nawatit Panit is going to show me how to make a traditional Thai dessert popular in the Ayutthaya court.
Today we're gonna make the phoi thong.
Phoi thong.
Knock it together.
Oh,
The dish is made with just one ingredient.
You have to gently let it run to one hand. Use your thumb to cut the egg white.
wow.
Okay, perfect.
Next, we filter the yolks through a fine cheesecloth without creating bubbles.
This is incredible.
Then, with a boiling pot of scented sugar water at the ready, it's time for a test of skill.
Okay, I'm going to gently drip the egg yolk in a circular fashion 20 times. So it has to be a correct height, speed.
Making the perfect phoi thong is a lot harder than it looks.
This is the bad hair day version of a phoi thong. It's a mess.
These delicate strands of gold are considered auspicious and often served in local ceremonies. But it's not a typical Thai dessert.
We used rice, coconut, and sugar to make Thai dessert. We didn't use egg when we cook. This came from Portuguese chef, the royal chef in Ayutthaya era.
I see.
She is half Portuguese, half Japanese.
Oh,
So she have a lot of techniques
I see.
to do the bakery, and she adapt the technique.
We have egg desserts in Singapore, Malaysia, Indonesia. And everybody thinks these egg desserts are part of the national culture. And it's all because of the network of the Portuguese trade. It's all shared heritage, and that's what I really love. Cheers.
Yummy.
Delicious.
Foreign influence on local culture did not stop at food. There are over 500 temples dotting the Ayutthaya cityscape, including this, a 400-year-old temple built by King Prasad Thong, who took design cues from the neighboring Angkor Empire.
The Khmer kings were famous for using architecture to present themselves as a divine god, getting a right to govern a kingdom. King Prasad Thong also used this technique. The bigger the temple, the more important the king.
So basically, this is an ancient PR exercise.
Exactly.
This temple was built to showcase divine authority at a time when Ayutthaya's kings modeled themselves into living gods. It's currently being restored with help from Natida Wanichayalai from the World Monuments Fund, and I'm going to chip in.
here we have our master mason. She's covering up the missing part of circle to reduce water infiltration. First of all, you spray the area some water to make it wet, ready to take the lime and the sand.
And then I just apply this?
Apply it on the surface.
Yeah, it sticks quite well, right?
Yeah.
So I'm filling in this limestone plaster. It's the traditional material used when the building was constructed. I'm making sure that it's different from the original plaster. So the idea is not to blend, but to clearly indicate what's old and what's new.
By the mid-17th century, the Ayutthaya Empire had grown to become a great regional power, profiting from trade, which saw it become one of the wealthiest cities in the world.
For a long time, Ayutthaya was focused on trade, but greater wealth meant higher political stakes. Grand projects like building temples and the religious piety they expressed were exploited to assert power and legitimacy.
King Prasad Thong played up the mysticism surrounding his throne, hiding the royal family from view and banning commoners from looking at them. This gave the ruling family renewed authority, leading up to the most opulent and fabled chapter of Ayutthaya's court life. In the mid-17th century, Thailand's Ayutthaya Empire was a regional powerhouse. The Yai Suvarnaram Temple reflects that period of Renaissance. Thanit Pumsawai is a kindred spirit, a fellow textile lover who's in awe of these 300-year-old motifs that adorn the temple walls.
เกิดการแลกเปลี่ยนสินค้าเกิดการแลกเปลี่ยนทางวัฒนธรรมเกิดขึ้นที่อาณาจักรอยุธยาลวดลายที่เห็นย่อมุมเนี่ยนะครับก็จะมาจากศิลปะของจีนแล้วก็อินเดียผสมกันนะครับอย่างลวดลายที่เป็นตัวเครือเถาเนี่ยก็เป็นลวดลายจากฝรั่งจึงทำให้อยุธยาเนี่ยมีศิลปะเกิดขึ้นเป็นศิลปะอยุธยาครับ
Yes, this mixture is such a wonderful expression of Ayutthaya's cosmopolitan culture at that time. It's beautiful.
Kun Thanit has been reviving interest in Ayutthaya-era patterns.
นี่ก็จะเป็นผืนนี้ที่ได้แรงบันดาลใจมาจากวัดใหญ่สุวรรณารามจังหวัดเพชรบุรีนะครับคือเป็นลายอย่างราชสำนักเราจึงต้องถอดลายแล้วก็เพิ่มเติมแล้วก็ตัดทอนบางส่วนเพื่อให้เกิดความงามเกิดความเป็นผ้านุ่ง
Format of it is exactly like an Indian trade textile for the Thai market in the Ayutthaya period. You might mistake it for an ancient textile, but the closer you look, the more details you find that never existed in that period. And that is the contribution of Nick, the artist.
This masterpiece uses real gold leaf.
พระมหากษัตริย์จะทรงใช้ทุกสิ่งทุกอย่างที่มีแสงเพชรพลอยหรือว้าวดังนั้นจิตรกรหรือช่างที่เขียนเนี่ยก็จำเป็นต้องใช้ทองคำเพื่อให้สื่อถึงยศถาบรรดาศักดิ์ของผู้ใช้นั่นก็คือพระมหากษัตริย์
I'm learning how it's done on a fan.
จุ่มลงไปแล้วก็เอามือวางนี้
The thing is, the glue sinks into the cloth. So if you're not paying attention, you forget where you've worked on. So you really have to focus. And just press. You can see this is the work of a novice, the fat, thick lines, not anything like the masters. I'd buy it.
This kind of material in the Ayutthaya period was like the luxury handbag of that time. It's something that everyone wanted from the whole of Southeast Asia and even up to Japan. Today, there are people drawing from that inspiration and making the heritage for tomorrow. You would think this is a niche market. But Ayutthaya period clothing has seen a surge in demand. It's thanks to a hit TV show called Love Destiny. Where an archaeologist is reincarnated in the body of a noble woman, living in the golden age of the Ayutthaya Empire. Catering to fans are shops like this one, run by Pecharat Ruwicha.
จะมีกัมพูชาพม่าแล้วก็จีนเกาหลีไต้หวันฮ่องกงแล้วก็ญี่ปุ่นนะคะ
It's a pan-Asian Ayutthaya craze. These costumes are a modern interpretation. And I want to join in the fun. Ta-da! So how do I look?
หล่อมาก จะใส่เครื่องประดับนี้เพื่อเพิ่มยศเพิ่มฐานะของเราค่ะอันนี้คุณปีเตอร์ก็จะหล่อแล้วก็รวยมากค่ะ
Nothing like a bit of bling. I love all this and I'm ready. I'm heading to Wat Chai Temple where the series was filmed and where fans flock to.
It's about the Ayutthaya culture, which is our history, and I think it is one of the easiest way for students to get into the history. When we come here and we see the real ancient temple, it's more than we saw in the TV. Other people come to our country and want to wear our clothes, so I think it's quite impressive.
What do you think of my costume?
So grand.
So it's
I'm sorry.
It's like golden and it's like a king in the past.
Oh,
yeah, it's perfect.
It's fascinating how a single TV series can reignite the nation's appreciation for the past. By allowing experimentations with identity, cosplay, or dressing up, has given this a contemporary and popular dimension. That's an excellent way to make history relevant. But after 150 years of relative peace and prosperity, Ayutthaya's golden age was headed for an abrupt end. By the early 1700s, the kings of Ayutthaya had become masters of trade, but they neglected the defenses. That's when their sworn enemy attacked again. In 1765, the Burmese army invaded Siam from 3 directions and arrived at the capital the following year. A siege lasted through the floods of the monsoon season. And when the water subsided, the Burmese dug tunnels under the city walls, set them on fire to bring them down, and entered the city. Ayutthaya was razed to the ground, and the invaders left, taking with them mountains of gold and slaves. It was the end of Ayutthaya. "15 years after the fall of the city, a new capital was built 80 kilometers downstream. It was created in Ayutthaya's image, and that city is Bangkok. It's incredible how many parallels exist between the Ayutthaya Empire and modern Thailand, both trading nations of immense wealth and powerhouses of the region. The cornerstones of all this affluence have always been bountiful resources, a strategic position, and its openness to the world, all of which still make up the backbone of the Thai economy today. I've traced the story of the Ayutthaya Empire, how Thailand's lush forests gave a growing kingdom the resources to build one of the world's trading powerhouses, and how pragmatism saw it grow into a cosmopolitan city, creating such a unique culture and lasting legacy that even 250 years after its fall, it continues to shape what Thailand is today.